Zawadi sat in the middle of her tiny fashion studio, scissors in hand, fabric spread across her work table. It was a usual busy Nairobi morning, horns blaring outside, boda bodas zipping past, the sweet smell of chai from a nearby stall. Her phone buzzed non-stop, but she ignored it at first. She was used to messages from clients, maybe some likes on her latest designs, but today felt different. The buzzing wouldn't stop. Finally, she picked up her phone, and what she saw made her heart sink. There it was, a blog post, trending, hundreds of shares, thousands of comments, and the headline, her name, her life, her secrets. Zawadi's hands trembled. Someone had written about her, not just rumors but personal things, deep, painful things only one person knew. She scrolled, eyes wide with shock, her heart thudding. Details about her past struggles, her miscarriage, how she once struggled with self-worth, all twisted, exaggerated, made to look messy and shameful. Then she saw the worst part. The post hinted that she wasn't as perfect as people thought, calling her fake and manipulative. She felt the blood drain from her face. There was only one person she had ever told those things, her best friend, Makena. Zawadi's breath caught in her throat. This couldn't be real. Makena, the woman she called sister, the one she'd laughed with, cried with, trusted blindly. Her chest felt tight. Betrayal wasn't just painful, it was suffocating. And in that moment, everything began to change. Zawadi woke up the next morning, hoping it had all been a bad dream. But the blog post was still everywhere, being shared on WhatsApp groups, reposted on Instagram, even turned into gossip threads on Twitter. Nairobi's fashion scene wasn't that big, and words spread fast. She could feel the silence creeping in from all directions. Clients who used to send her cheerful messages suddenly went quiet. Meetings were cancelled without explanation. Orders were put on hold. People weren't just backing off, they were judging her from afar, whispering about things they didn't even know were true. She stepped out to the market one afternoon to buy fabric, hoping maybe she was imagining it, but the stares were real. The quiet side glances, the forced smiles. Two women near the fabric store were scrolling through their phones, then looked up at her and giggled. Zawadi felt her stomach twist. She had faced challenges before, late payments, failed deliveries, tight deadlines, but nothing like this. This wasn't just work stress, this was public humiliation. At home, things weren't any better. Otieno, her husband, tried to act like he cared. "Don't mind those people," he said, not even looking up from his phone. "People talk, it'll pass." His words were empty, like he was reading from a script. And then, just like that, he was off again. Another work trip to Mombasa. Lately, he seemed to have a lot of those. Zawadi sat alone in their apartment that evening, watching the curtains sway in the breeze, wondering how her life had flipped so fast. She looked at her reflection in the window. Tired eyes, messy bun, heartbroken stare. It wasn't just the betrayal by Makena that hurt, it was how alone she suddenly felt. Everyone was pulling away, even Otieno. He wasn't angry, he wasn't supportive, he was distant, like a stranger in her own home. And something about him didn't feel right anymore. He didn't ask how she was feeling. He didn't defend her online. He barely touched her when they shared a bed. Zawadi started noticing small things. A new cologne smell on his shirts, the way he always kept his phone face down, how he never stayed long after a call. She didn't want to believe the worst, but her gut whispered otherwise. Zawadi wasn't just dealing with online shame. She was watching her world collapse from all angles. Her business, her friendships, her marriage, all crumbling like dry paper in the rain. She wanted to scream, to fight, to beg someone to just tell her the truth, but no one did. And so she sank quietly into herself, numb, confused, and more alone than she'd ever been. Zawadi sat curled up on the corner of her couch, a cup of cold tea untouched in her hands. Her phone kept lighting up with notifications, but she didn't bother to check anymore. The damage was already done. Her name was in people's mouths. Her business was struggling, and the people she trusted most had gone silent. Her mind couldn't stop replaying the past, especially memories of Makena. How had they even gotten here? She remembered the day Makena called her crying, saying she had been kicked out of her bedsitter in Rongai. Rent was overdue, her landlord had thrown her things out, and she had nowhere to go. Without even thinking twice, Zawadi had told her, "Come, you'll stay with me for as long as you need." That night, Zawadi cleared out the guest room and helped Makena unpack her things. She even cooked her favorite meal, chapati and ndengu, just to cheer her up. For weeks, Makena stayed in Zawadi's home, rent-free. She ate from her table, wore some of Zawadi's clothes, and even borrowed her laptop to look for jobs. When Makena got discouraged, Zawadi was the one who reminded her of her worth, told her she had talent and could build something great. She wasn't just a friend, she was like a sister. Zawadi took her everywhere, family gatherings, weddings, even private client fittings. Everyone knew Makena because of Zawadi. And now, that same woman had turned her private pain into gossip for the world to laugh at. Zawadi kept asking herself the same question over and over. Why? Why would Makena do this? What did she gain from it? Was it jealousy? Was it revenge? But revenge for what? Zawadi had only ever helped her. She had shared her roof, her food, her life. And now it felt like Makena had stabbed her, slowly, deeply, and with a smile on her face. And then there was Otieno. Her husband, the man who once held her hand in every storm, was now colder than ever. He didn't ask her how she was doing. He didn't fight for her online or defend her name to their friends. He just existed beside her, like they were roommates, not lovers. Zawadi kept thinking about their earlier days, how they would stay up late dreaming about the future, how proud he once was of her business. That man felt gone. Was he just tired of her? Or was there something more? Her heart felt heavy with confusion. Betrayal from Makena was already a deep wound, but Otieno's silence, his emotional distance, felt like salt rubbed into it. She had given so much of herself to these two people, and now, both of them felt like strangers. As the city buzzed outside, and the world continued to turn, Zawadi stayed frozen in that moment, heartbroken, angry, and starting to realize that maybe the truth was even worse than she imagined. One night, Zawadi was folding laundry in the bedroom when Otieno's phone buzzed loudly on the nightstand. He was in the shower, and normally she wouldn't even think of touching his phone, but something in her heart pushed her. A small voice inside whispered, "Just look." She picked it up. The screen showed a message. "I miss you already. Last weekend was everything. Same time next month?" Zawadi froze. Her fingers went cold. The name on the contact, just saved as M. Her mind raced. M. Could it be Makena? Otieno came out of the bathroom, humming casually, towel around his waist. Zawadi quickly placed the phone down, pretending she hadn't seen anything. But inside, her whole world had started shaking again. The next morning, after Otieno left for a quick client meeting, Zawadi started going through the drawer where he kept old receipts and travel stuff. She didn't know what exactly she was looking for, just anything that could explain that message. And then, tucked inside a folded sweater, she found it, a printed receipt from a beachfront resort in Diani. 2 guests, a king-sized room. Date, last weekend. That same weekend, Otieno said he was attending a business workshop in Mombasa. Zawadi sat on the floor, holding the receipt like it was a weapon. Her head spun. Her breath came in short, sharp gasps. She felt sick, angry, betrayed all over again. But she wasn't going to sit in pain this time. She needed answers. Real ones. She called her cousin Brian, the one who worked in tech, always joking about how he could hack into anything, if he wanted. At first he laughed when she asked him to help, but when she told him why, his voice changed. "Give me a few hours," he said. That night, Brian came over with his laptop. He worked quietly, typing fast, face serious. "I just need to access some cloud backups and check synced data," he mumbled. Zawadi didn't fully understand what he was doing, but she trusted him. Within an hour, Brian had found everything. Otieno had backed up his WhatsApp chats without realizing it, and there they were. Photos, voice notes, videos, screenshots, selfies with Makena on the beach, kissing in hotel robes, holding hands at dinner, love notes with inside jokes, conversations about Zawadi, cruel, mocking, and cold. Zawadi stared at the screen, mouth open, hands shaking. Every scroll felt like a stab. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. It wasn't just a one-time mistake. It was a full-blown affair with her best friend, under her roof, behind her back. While she was breaking down, they were living their fantasy. Brian sat beside her, silent now. He didn't know what to say, but Zawadi did. She stood up, wiped her tears, and whispered to herself. They chose war, and she was done playing the victim. Zawadi sat on the floor of her bedroom, Brian's laptop still open in front of her. The screen glowed with the kind of truth that destroys you, not softly, not slowly, but all at once. There was no more space for guessing, no more, maybe I'm wrong. It was all right there. Selfies of Otieno and Makena, cuddled up in hotel beds. Beach photos where she wore one of Zawadi's old swimsuits, the one she had once borrowed and never returned. Videos of them laughing, toasting glasses, kissing. Zawadi's heart pounded, but no tears came. She had cried enough. Then came the love notes, long messages filled with pet names and fake promises. You're my peace. I hate going back home to her. Zawadi read each one with a steady face, her fingers gripping the edge of the table. What hurt more than the cheating was the timing. It had all happened during her darkest days, when that blog post came out, when her business was falling apart, when she was lying in bed, feeling invisible. They were out there living, like it was a movie, while she was breaking in silence. Makena had smiled in her face, slept under her roof, eaten her food, and then went behind her back to steal what little joy she had left. And Otieno, the man who promised to protect her, was busy planning beach weekends with her best friend while she was battling shame alone. There were also booking confirmations, flights, hotels, restaurants, dates that matched every so-called work trip. The lies were so detailed, so well organized, it made Zawadi sick to think how long it had been going on. Months, maybe even a year. But this time, Zawadi didn't fall apart. She didn't scream. She didn't even wake Brian, who had dozed off on the couch. Instead, she saved every photo, every voice note, every screenshot into a folder on a flash drive. She labeled it the affair file. She sat back, breathing deeply. Her heart still hurt, but there was a new fire inside her, quiet but burning. Zawadi knew this wasn't about getting revenge out of pettiness. No, this was about reclaiming her dignity, about making sure people saw the full picture. She had been painted as the villain, the fake, the dramatic one. But the truth was louder. She didn't want their apologies. She didn't want to talk or heal together. She wanted the truth out, not for sympathy, but for justice. She was done crying. Now it was time to act. Because when a woman rises from betrayal, she doesn't come back the same. She comes back ready. Zawadi sat in the dark, her laptop glowing in front of her like a spotlight. Her heart was calm, too calm. The kind of calm that comes after a storm. Not because the chaos is gone, but because you've decided to stop running from it. She plugged in the flash drive labeled The Affair Files and opened the folder. Everything was still there. The photos, the videos, the messages, the proof. This wasn't revenge from pain. This was justice born from silence. She opened Instagram and created a new account. No name, no face, just a clean, blank profile. She picked a simple username, something random, but catchy enough to go unnoticed just long enough to explode. Then, slowly, carefully, she began to post. One by one, she uploaded the screenshot, Otieno's love messages, hotel booking receipts, beach selfies with captions like, "My peace," and "Can't wait to be back here with you." She blurred her name out of every post, but left Makena's clearly visible. She included timestamps, dates, and matching receipts, evidence so clean it couldn't be denied. Then, as the final post, she uploaded a collage, 4 photos of Makena and Otieno together, smiling like they'd won a prize. Underneath, she wrote one sentence: "Since we're posting secrets online, let's make it a fair game." And she tagged Makena directly. Then she hit post. Zawadi closed the laptop, stood up, and walked away. Within 20 minutes, her phone started buzzing. Someone had already shared the post to Twitter, then Facebook, then back to Instagram. Within an hour, it had reached Nairobi's gossip blogs. The caption, "Makena exposed," was trending. Screenshots started flying through group chats. People commented in shock, tagging each other. "Wait, is this real? That's Zawadi's husband. Wasn't Makena her best friend? I knew something was off with that girl." Zawadi didn't say a word. She didn't need to. The truth was speaking for her now. Makena tried to control the damage. She posted a selfie looking unbothered, captioned, "Let people talk." But people weren't just talking, they were dragging. Influencer pages unfollowed her. Brands started distancing themselves. People commented things like, "You can't play victim after stabbing your friend in the back." Otieno, meanwhile, tried to ignore it. But by that evening, Zawadi knew he had seen it too. He tried calling her 4 times. She declined each one. She watched everything unfold quietly. No tears, no second thoughts. This wasn't petty, this was power. And as Nairobi buzzed with gossip, Zawadi smiled for the first time in weeks, not because of what they were going through, but because they finally knew what she had survived. She didn't ruin them, they ruined themselves. She just lit the match. The morning after the posts went viral, Nairobi was on fire, not with flames, but with gossip, outrage, and whispers. Everywhere Zawadi turned, someone was talking about that exposé. Screenshots from the burner account were all over Instagram stories. Twitter threads were full of people dissecting the evidence. Even online blogs had jumped in, posting articles like "Influencer Makena caught in shocking affair scandal" and "Betrayal in Nairobi's elite circles." Makena's shiny influencer life started crashing almost instantly. The skincare brand that had just signed her dropped her within hours. They released a cold, polite statement saying, "We stand for women's empowerment and do not condone betrayal or harmful behavior." Her fashion deal was cancelled next. Her name was removed from an upcoming panel on women in leadership. The very same followers who once praised her now filled her comments with snake emojis and questions like, "How could you do that to your best friend?" Makena tried to clap back, posting a crying video saying she was being cyberbullied, but no one was buying it. The receipts were too clear, the betrayal too deep. People were tired of fake apologies wrapped in pretty filters. Otieno didn't have it any easier. Word had gotten to his workplace by midday. His boss called him in for a talk. Co-workers stared at him in the hallway, whispering behind his back. Some even made sarcastic comments. "Another Mombasa trip this weekend. Otieno." He tried to brush it off, but his shame was written all over his face. Back home, his own family was furious. Zawadi had always been the peacemaker in their gathering, the one who cooked, smiled, and made everyone feel welcome. Now, they were shocked to learn what their son had done, and who he had done it with. Zawadi, on the other hand, remained silent. She didn't respond to the messages. She didn't release a statement. She didn't even log back into the burner account. She simply got up every day, took a shower, sipped her tea, and focused on breathing again. People began to see her in a new light, not as the bitter wife, not as the jealous friend, but as a woman who had been deeply betrayed and still chose dignity over drama. Her clients began returning. Messages of support flooded her inbox. Some said, "I never knew what you were going through. You're stronger than most." Others wrote, "You've inspired me to finally walk away from a toxic friendship." Zawadi didn't smile for praise. She smiled because her truth was finally visible. She didn't have to explain herself anymore. She wasn't the villain in anyone's twisted story. She was the prey who had turned into a lioness, fierce, quiet, and unshakable. And while the ones who hurt her were now drowning in the mess they created, Zawadi stood tall in her peace, because sometimes the loudest victory is silence. Zawadi sat on her balcony one evening, sipping warm chai as the Nairobi sky turned orange and gold. The city buzzed below, but her mind was calm. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't checking her phone every 5 minutes. She wasn't crying in the shower. She wasn't shrinking in shame. She was simply at peace. Her phone lit up again. Another message from Makena, the 5th one that day. "Please, Z, can we talk? I didn't mean for it to go that far. I miss you." Zawadi didn't open any of them. She just stared at the screen, heart unmoved. The same woman who once turned her private life into public shame was now begging for a conversation. But there was nothing left to say. No apology would erase what she had done. Minutes later, the phone rang. Otieno, again. He'd been calling every day, sometimes 3-4 times in a row, leaving voicemails, pretending to care. "We need to talk," he said. "I made a mistake. You didn't deserve that." But to Zawadi, those words were just noise now, late, empty, and too easy. She opened her contacts list, blocked both Makena and Otieno, and placed her phone face down. That silence, that refusal to respond, hit harder than any angry message ever could. It wasn't coldness, it was strength. People like Makena and Otieno expected drama. They were waiting for Zawadi to scream, cry, curse, or beg. But instead, she gave them silence. The kind that echoes. The kind that makes you sit with your guilt. Zawadi began to walk through life differently now. She started visiting the local market again. Chin up, smile soft but confident. Some people stared, curious. Others came up to say they admired her strength. One woman whispered, "I saw what happened online. I don't know how you stayed so calm. You're a queen." Zawadi didn't need to explain herself. Her silence had already spoken the truth. She had let go of needing closure, let go of needing apologies, let go of expecting them to feel what she felt, because what they lost, her trust, her love, her presence, was bigger than any text or phone call. At night, when she lay in bed alone, it wasn't pain that kept her awake anymore. It was plans, dreams, ideas for her next fashion project, visions of something bigger, something hers. Makena and Otieno were no longer characters in her life story. They were just background noise, a lesson, a warning. And Zawadi, she was the main character now, unbothered, unreachable, because real power isn't shouting. It's rising without looking back. It's walking away with your crown straight, your heart healed, and your silence louder than any scream. One morning, as Zawadi scrolled through her emails over a cup of lemon tea, one subject line made her stop. Invitation to speak at the Women Rise conference. She opened it slowly, half thinking it might be spam, but it wasn't. It was real. A well-known women's rights organization in Nairobi had seen her story, not just the scandal, but the way she handled it, with dignity, with silence, with strength. They were hosting their annual event themed Digital Dignity and Female Resilience, and they wanted her, Zawadi, to be the keynote speaker. For a moment, she just stared at the screen. Her, the same woman who once hid under her covers, afraid to face the world after that blog post. The same woman who had to discover betrayal through a tech folder named Affair File. Yes, that woman, because she didn't just survive, she rose. Zawadi replied with a simple yes, but inside, her heart was doing backflips. On the day of the event, she wore one of her own designs, a bold, deep red suit, tailored to perfection. Her hair was up, her heels high, and her confidence louder than ever. She walked into the packed auditorium to the sound of claps, but she didn't smile right away. She waited, she breathed, then she began. She told her story, not with bitterness, but with clarity. She spoke about how easy it is for women to be painted as the problem, how people love to shame a woman before they listen to her, how betrayal doesn't just break your heart, it tries to steal your voice. But I learned, she said, her voice steady, that silence can be louder than a scream. And when you stand in your truth, no one can weaponize it against you. The room was quiet. Then one clap turned into 10. Then a wave of applause filled the air. Women wiped tears. Some stood up. Others reached for tissues. By the end of her speech, Zawadi wasn't just a woman who'd been betrayed. She was a voice, a mirror, a reminder that you can lose everything and still find yourself, that you can be humiliated and still rise with grace. The event went viral online. Clips of her speech were shared everywhere with captions like, "This is what strength looks like, and every woman needs to hear this." She started getting messages from women across Kenya, and even beyond, telling her how her story gave them the courage to leave toxic relationships, speak up about workplace betrayal, or finally block that friend who only brought pain. Zawadi didn't ask for the spotlight, but she walked into it with purpose, not to become famous, but to make other women feel seen. From the ashes of scandal, she had created something powerful. Her voice had turned into a movement, and this time, the world wasn't laughing, it was listening. 2 years later, the streets of Nairobi buzzed with excitement. Billboards lit up with Zawadi's name. Invitations had been sent to the city's biggest names. Paparazzi waited outside, cameras ready. Tonight wasn't just about fashion, it was about her story coming full circle. Zawadi's fashion house, House of Zawadi, was finally launching, and it wasn't small, it was bold, elegant, and impossible to ignore. The runway was lined with her designs, each one telling a piece of her journey. Strength in the cuts, grace in the fabric, power in every stitch. She stood backstage in a gold silk gown of her own creation, taking a slow, deep breath. This was her moment. No more hiding, no more healing. She had arrived. As the music started and the lights dimmed, Zawadi stepped onto the stage. The crowd rose in applause. People chanted her name. She smiled, not wide and forced, but soft and steady. The kind of smile that says, "I made it." And then, from the corner of her eye, she saw her. Makena, standing quietly near the back, behind the flashing cameras. No followers, no sponsors, just a face in the crowd now. Zawadi didn't flinch. She didn't look away. She simply smiled, because Makena no longer held space in her heart. She was not an enemy, not even a memory worth pain. She was a forgotten chapter in a book Zawadi had rewritten. And as the room roared with applause, Zawadi knew power doesn't need to scream. It doesn't seek revenge. It simply walks in, dressed in gold, and lets the world watch.